This CBC original program is available in described video.
Well, this is it, folks. The night we have all been waiting for, the 25th annual Scotiabank Giller Prize, coming to you live from downtown Toronto. It is, without a doubt, the most prestigious night of the year on the literary calendar, which is exactly like a normal calendar, except every month there's a topless photo of John Ralston Saul. It was 25 years ago, if you can believe it, that the great Jack Rabinovich founded the Giller Prize. He wanted a night that would celebrate and honor great Canadian literature, and his legacy survives. Tonight, 5 Canadian authors compete for the richest prize in Canadian literature, $100,000. Think of the drama. 5 authors from diverse backgrounds enter a cage at the Ritz-Carlton and fight to the death for big money. Exactly the way Jack envisioned it a quarter of a century ago. But of course, it's not technically a fight to the death. That's what we call in the world of literature hyperbole with a soupçon of exaggeration. Because tonight, along with the $100,000 grand prize, 4 additional writers will receive $10,000 each, thanks in no small part to our sponsors at Scotiabank. And I ask you, where would this award show be if it were not for our sponsors? Right here in this alley, actually. So let's go inside. Let's meet the authors and let's celebrate 5 unforgettable stories, because that's what this night is all about. It's about the majesty of the written word. It is a show like no other. It is a show that for some reason Doug Ford has referred to as a sex parade. So the time has come. Gather around, put down that book you're reading, and watch the TV. It's Giller time.
The first annual Giller Award is MJ
Rohinton Mystery to Margaret Atwood for Evans.
It's really a triumph of all Canadian literature.
This celebration truly is a tribute to what it means to be Canadian.
It's not about celebrities. It's not about fame. It's not about bestsellers. It's just about books.
Reading books and writing books makes life more meaningful. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Live from the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Toronto, it's the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize. Tonight, we celebrate 25 years of extraordinary Canadian storytelling and reveal the winner of the largest prize in Canadian fiction. Our star-studded guest list includes actor, author, legend, Gordon Pinsent, novelist, poet, and Giller winner, Margaret Atwood. From CBC's Murdoch Mysteries, Helene Joy. And from Because News, Gavin Crawford. Last year's Scotiabank Giller Prize winner, Michael Redhill. Critically acclaimed novelist and screenwriter, John Irving. CBC hosts Amanda Paris and Tom Power. Kim's Convenience star, Paul Sun-Young Lee. And from the tragically hip, Johnny Fay. Tonight, find out who will take home the Scotiabank Giller Prize and make a lasting impact on the literary world. Please welcome your host, Rick Mercer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to the 25th annual Scotiabank Giller Prize. In 25 years, the Giller Prize has never had a more rested host. Can you believe the Giller Prize started 25 years ago? That's 19 postal strikes. I want to welcome everyone to the show tonight, not just the people in the room, but the people watching at home on various platforms. You can watch us on the CBC network, you can stream us on Facebook or YouTube, you can even like us on Instagram, but not at 1:30 in the morning. That will get you thrown out of caucus. The Giller Prize is a very big deal. How big? We are preempting the Murdoch mysteries tonight. And over at CTV, they're so afraid of us, they postponed The Voice. They're running a test pattern. That is the power of literature. And that's what it's all about, celebrating the best in Canadian fiction. But it's also about money. Think of this. A winning author tonight will walk away with $100,000. The 4 other authors will walk away with $10,000 each. So much money going to the arts tonight, and the great thing is, it's all generated from a carbon tax on gasoline. I'll tell you a little bit about the format of tonight's show. Each author is going to come up here. They're going to say a few words about the long, arduous process they went through to create their incredible novels. Then Andrew Scheer is going to come out and tell us how he could have done it just a little bit better. Very impressive nominees tonight, a mixed bag. 3 women and 2 men, which is also Justin Trudeau's definition of marriage. Justin Trudeau couldn't be here tonight. He apologizes. Not to us, I just mean in general. That's what he does. Many distinguished guests in the house tonight. Margaret Atwood is here this evening. Margaret has had an incredibly busy year. The miniseries based on her novel Alias Grace aired on this network. The TV series based on her novel The Handmaid's Tale is a runaway international success story. She's appeared at the Golden Globes, the Emmy Awards, and just today, she turned down the Super Bowl halftime show. Former Ontario Premier Bob Rae is with us this evening. We've had so many Ontario premiers over the years. They love books. They say Kathleen Wynne loved books so much she kept 2 sets. Too soon? Ontario Premier Doug Ford could not make it this evening, but he sent us all best wishes, encouraged everyone in Ontario to keep reading, and even suggested a booklet entitled An Introduction to Casino Gambling. But tonight, we are here to celebrate the authors. We honor the book lovers. And we have people here from all across the book spectrum, from public libraries, where many of us go to read books for free, to Indigo, where many of us go to read books for free. Indigo, of course, is not the only bookseller here this evening. Book City, Ben McNally, the bookkeeper, all have people here tonight to show their support. And for the first time, Amazon has agreed not to buzz the stage with any drones. I'm personally looking forward to presenting the authors to you tonight. I feel like I have a kinship with them because I wrote a book this year. I did. And by right, I mean I hit select all and print. My book is called The Final Report. I went with that title because I Am Malala was taken. And now let's get on with the show. We are celebrating 5 incredible books. Now, only one can win, but every one of them deserves to be on your nightstand. You know, Jack Rabinovich founded the Giller Prize in honor of his wife, Doris. Jack always said, you can buy all 5 of these books for the price of a good dinner in this town. And then Pierre Burton would pipe up and say, yeah, or for the price of a giant bag of weed. And that's how this award show was created. It's a part of our Canadian heritage. Before we meet our first author, I would like to introduce you to a man who needs no introduction, especially to this crowd. Johnny Fay, the drummer for the Tragically Hip. Johnny's here tonight. He's going to help us keep the night moving along. He's a great lover of books. The acoustic opening of Bob Cajun gave him plenty of time to read. Our first nominated book this evening is Songs for the Cold of Heart. Originally published en français in Quebec, where it enjoyed phenomenal commercial success, the recent English translation has garnered rave reviews around the world and has put its author, Eric Dupont, in contention for Canada's richest literary prize. Critics have called this book masterful, heartbreaking, and hilarious. And the Giller Prize jury said it's a tour de force and a magnificent work of irony and magic. Please welcome Eric Dupont.
I wrote Songs for the Cold of Heart because I have always loved intricate stories and larger-than-life characters. I also wanted to offer the people I love and how they evolve over time. This book is my way of paying tribute to the many wonderful storytellers who raised me. It is a long book for those who like to stay up late. It has a lot of snow, a lot of music, and many imperfect mortals who have all been found guilty of love in the first degree. I hope these songs will warm their hearts. I like the rhythm of it. Songs for the cold of heart. I think there are many things that could be done by a musician with this rhythm. The reason why I chose writing is because I'm a control freak. I am myself a big fan of gossip, of talking about other people. But of course, I'm also very worried about what the others say about me. That maybe because I'm from a small town in eastern Quebec, we are fascinated with gossip, yes. It's a family saga. It's the story of 4 generations of La Montagne. It starts in 1918 in Rivière-du-Loup. Old Ma, Madeleine, she had a son who needed a wife. This wife needed to be a Madeleine. In that family, they need to have a Madeleine alive in every generation. It ends in Rome in the year 2000. There's everything you like: food, sex, money, and divine intervention. People that they call cold of heart are only cold of heart in appearance. It's an impression. It's just that they seem this way. I'm all of these people. They're all a part of me. For me, it's character. The character has to be larger than life. With a book, you have to invent, and you can make your mind work. And so Mark slept, to the great delight of his sister, who would then be left alone for a while. How strange. This is a very important sentence.
Coming up, 2018 finalist and winner of the 2011 Scotiabank Giller Prize, Esi Edugyan introduces her celebrated novel When the Scotiabank Giller Prize returns.
And I want to say thank you to my father, who I know is watching tonight, and hi, Dad.
Hi, Mom. Number 4 son. Did you proud?
To my sister, Kristen, for being here tonight and sharing in this amazing moment with me.
I'm looking at my mom here and I'm gonna cry because I think she is. Oh, don't do it, Ma.
It was going to overwhelm me, but I just kept reading.
You know, Eric was talking about how important music is to the story, and this feels like a novel that has been composed.
Yes.
And how one sentence leads right into another, one paragraph into the next, although the chapters are all distinctive. But I just felt there was a sense of music and rhythm and flow and phrasing to it as well.
The writing is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think, it's worth mentioning it's a translation. So,
yes.
Peter McCambridge came in, and that's a sort of partnership in a sense, the way that he looks at it and translates it into English. But there were parts where I laughed out loud, and that doesn't always happen, rarely happens when I'm reading,
It was funny. You and I both have hosted Between the Pages events across the country where we were able to talk to the 5 finalists. And when Eric was talking about his book in translation, he said, well, my name is Dupont, which means bridge. And then there's McCambridge. So we were meant to be. I think he likes to have fun with words, too.
Yeah, and even live. You can even see from the clips there.
Yeah.
And he's just a really dynamic personality. And I think that really shows up in the book. The characters are just huge and funny and fascinating.
And so much about storytelling, right? Yeah. Right at the very beginning where the young girl is making a drink for her father, Louis the horse.
Louis the horse. The moment you meet the horse, that story is
it just takes off.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. It's really beautiful. The translation, the translator, Peter, said that it was a marathon to translate this book.
Yeah.
It was not a sprint.
Yeah. He talked about, there was one word in there where They debated for a long time, even over singular words, whether the word that Eric wanted to use could or should be used. And so it's really fascinating to hear him talk about that.
No, JL, if Eric Dupont does win the Scotiabank Giller Prize, he will be sharing it with his translator, right?
I heard this. And they split the prize. Is it 70-30?
70-30.
70-30.
Yeah.
So that's the, and it'll be the first translation. If it wins, it would be the first translation to win the prize. So this is the first time it would happen.
Yeah, the translations have been nominated in the past, but this would be, very, very interesting. And the translation is exquisite.
Yes.
So
it's very well done.
The Giller Prize is just a very, very exciting event. I was there at the very first one. I'm so ancient. 25 years ago. This is the 25th anniversary.
It's the silver anniversary.
Yeah, it is the
I
silver
feel like we
anniversry.
should have worn silver. We can tell people we're wearing silver.
Yeah, I am wearing a silver ring. It's big, and it means I'm married. But I think that this was like the Taj Mahal that Jack Rabinovich built for his late wife Doris Giller, who was an amazing female journalist, literary journalist. The very first she set up the first book review section for the Montreal Gazette. And then when they moved to Toronto, she did a column called Reading Habits in the Toronto Star. And I understand, I never met Doris, but I understand from people who knew her that she was a lot like Auntie Mame. She had a very big personality and just sort of enraptured everybody that she met.
Well, and what a legacy to have this huge prize. I mean, for writers,
what a tribute.
It's people were asking me today when I was talking on the radio, how big a deal is the Giller? And I said it's the biggest deal. I mean, it's the biggest prize. The authors, the shortlisted authors get $10,000. The winner gets $100,000. And they travel all across the country. There's just a big whole experience involved in it that's both important for the writer and for readers.
And it is one of the most desirable invitations to receive as well. And what's wonderful is all of Canada can be there.
Yes.
Either via CBC TV or with us here on CBC Radio. So one down, four to go. And we have another 45 minutes before we find out who has won the Scotiabank Giller Prize. J.L. Richardson and I are here. I now return things over to Rick Mercer.
Thank you, Johnny. Welcome back to the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize. A special hello to everyone listening on CBC Radio 1. And rumor has it we're now streaming on Rebel Media. Every author nominated tonight will tell you that being on the Giller shortlist has an immediate impact on book sales in this country and around the world. They call it the Giller Bump. The Giller Bump, also the name of a forbidden dance invented by Jack and Doris in 1986. But getting on the Giller shortlist is no easy task. 104 books were submitted for the Giller Prize. These books were read, discussed, and debated by the jury. Yes, each jury member is required to read 104 books. In fact, their love of reading has been permanently extinguished. The Giller Prize is very proud of this accomplished, diverse, and well-rounded group of individuals. Please look at your screens and say thank you to the 2018 Giller Prize jury. Okay. Sorry, that was clearly a mistake. That's not the Giller jury. That's a reminder for all of us to get our prostates checked. Let's try that again. The 2018 Giller Prize jury. See, I would vote for them. Our next book comes from a Calgary native who has already won the Giller Prize in 2011. If she wins tonight, Esi Edugyan will have every author's dream. Giller bookends. Washington Black is her third novel, and it was shortlisted for this year's Booker Prize. The Washington Post called it the most anticipated book of the year, and the Giller jury said Edugyan has written a supremely engrossing novel. Please welcome Esi Edugyan.
My novel, Washington Black, explores the life of a gifted boy born in bondage who makes his way into worlds he could never have imagined. I wanted to write a story about science and friendship, about the human capacity for wonder, and how fragile that wonder can be. What I found surprised me. The story of a boy complicated by love and friendship, slowly learning to ask, what is true freedom? It's a book about the varieties of freedom, love of the natural world, and what it means to be a fully realized human being and to live a full, rich life. I would describe Washington Black, the novel, as being about an 11-year-old field slave who knows no other life but one of brutality on the plantation. He's very suddenly plucked out of this life by his new master's brother and taken out into the greater world. It's being removed from this life that he can begin to construct a sense of identity, to have an understanding of, just the fullness of his humanity. That's really the big takeaway. I had somebody approach me recently, and she said it really felt like I was reading a 19th century novel, but that there was somebody like me as a protagonist. So that was huge for me. I have absolutely no roadmap for when I begin a novel. The characters will start working their way towards something, and then I'll just follow them. That's something that I'm continually discovering and rediscovering, because I have to throw out a lot of material as the story shifts and begins to shape itself. Or I did for many years have a certain restlessness. I spent years kind of roaming around Europe. What that brought home to me was that I'm very Canadian through and through. And even if I sometimes feel restless or disconnected, this is my home. That night, I dreamed, for the first time in months, of Big Kit. We were standing at the edge of the cane at sunset, and there were tiny flecks of insects feeding in the darkening air.
Coming up, Patrick deWitt presents French Exit when the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize continues, live on CBC.
Thank you to everyone who has ever read my book, whether you liked it or not.
I would be lying if I tell you that I came unprepared.
This happy occasion is tainted for me only because the award I've coveted since I was a 12-year-old still eludes me, and that is the Cy Young Award.
In the U.S. and he's in Canada, England.
And he's in a flying machine.
He's in a flying machine.
Yeah.
There's this scientific element to it.
Yes.
I loved what she had to say about the importance of friendship that's really captured here. And there's really a sense, because he starts at 11, of discovery in his life, of what it means to be in bondage, of what it means to be physically, quote unquote, free, and then what it really means to be free. You know?
Yeah, so much about the nature of friendship indeed. And he does befriend someone. He befriends the brother of the plantation owner and thinks it is a friendship, but we have to wonder, is it really?
And I loved that that's where it goes, because I mean, at times we're uncomfortable as readers, right, with that relationship. We know that, you know, that's complicated, right?
Yeah.
He might not be his master formally, but he is a master of kinds.
And completely oblivious to his privilege. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
And so there's moments I found very early in the book, so as not to be a spoiler, where you're just
Yes.
like nervous. Like,
Yeah.
is this trustworthy?
Right.
And it's really powerful to feel what you feel as a reader and to see what happens to Washington Black.
I think another thing that's really wonderful about the book is the way she tracks Washington Black's artistic development, because he becomes a major illustrator of marine life and a painter as well. So,
and it's such an important thing to capture, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to these young people and Black people who were enslaved. There's so much more that they were capable of doing than just being on a plantation. And so to see how he's given that opportunity to blossom is such an important part of the story that is different and really critical.
yeah, as he said, one of the things that she wanted to explore was what was lost, what was lost in those generations of slaves, how they could have been great scientists, great artists, great writers, you name it, physicists, whatever, taking away the gift of creativity.
Yeah, I really loved, and I love the cover with the octopus and
Yeah.
how that plays out. It's really powerful, that part of the scientific element as well in the story.
Yeah, it's an amazing book, and it was nominated. It's already been nominated for many prizes.
Yes, big prizes,
Yes.
right? Man Booker Prize.
Right.
And, yeah, Writers' Trust.
Writers' Trust Prize, and this is her second Giller nomination.
This is her second Giller, and if she wins, interesting fact for her, she would
Yeah.
be the third person to win the Giller Prize twice.
I must ask you, who are the other people? Because I know you know.
MG Pasanji
Right.
and Alice Munro. I feel
Right,
like if
yeah.
there's a Jeopardy category on Giller, I'm set.
Absolutely. It will be very interesting to see. And of course, in 2011, she was up for the Giller with Patrick DeWitt.
Yes.
So here they are again.
Yes.
And they have been traveling across the country. They
They're
went.
like, I describe them as like LeBron James and Steph Curry of literature, right? They're constantly facing off against each other. They're both excellent, but we'll hear later in a little bit how different their writing is too.
Yeah, absolutely. I did mention the Giller jury. It's a very diverse jury. There are, Maxine Bailey. I love the
Yes.
fact that she describes herself as
a prolific reader.
Yes.
That's her Twitter account if you follow Maxine Bailey.
That's really great.
Which I think is so important, right?
It absolutely is. I think it's really important to have readers represent.
Yeah. I mean, the other four are
Yeah.
all readers, obviously, but they are also writers. So to have somebody where that's their jam, just reading, I like that.
We'll talk about the jury in a little while, but that certainly was their jam. A lot of books read, because we're getting closer to the point where their choice will be revealed.
Welcome back to the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize. I have to tell you, anticipation is building in the room as we all wonder which author will walk away with $100,000. At this moment, I would like to give a shout out to all the people across the country attending Giller Light Bashes. These are viewing parties in 7 cities across the country that raise money for Frontier College, which provides essential literary programs for children, youth, and adults in over 150 communities. I hope Doug Ford's not watching, because that's the moment he would have kicked his TV in. I would also like to point out that I take my duties as Giller host extremely seriously. It's not a job. For me, it's a calling. I'm always willing to walk the extra mile. But in this instance, as you're about to see, I didn't really have to walk at all. The assignment was conveniently located on the subway line. Please, take a look at this. The Giller Prize is all about excellence and storytelling. But what makes for an excellent story? To find out, I spoke with some experts. What makes a good story? What kind of story do you like?
Usually if you have like a problem in the story.
Okay.
And then at the end, like it has a solution. It will make you stay up all night. That it's really good.
Oh yeah, do you ever get in trouble because you stay up too late reading?
Well, I've never stayed up too late reading because I have school, so
Right.
there needs to be action or else I throw it on the ground and I'm out.
Okay.
What makes a good story is about how many words are in the book.
Would you ever read a book that's 603 pages?
Yeah, I have.
You have not. What was it?
I don't know. It was one of the Harry Potter books.
Oh, yeah, they get big, don't they? Does anyone here think it would be fun being an author? Like being a grown-up person who writes stories for a living.
You would get so much money out of it, because you would be like...
It's true. They're throwing the money at you.
You'd be like, selling books, and then you get like all these prizes.
Oh, the prizes. The person who wins the big prize...
They get a lot of money.
They get $100,000.
Oh, wow. You're gonna spend it with us, right?
No, I don't win the award. I give out the award. Actually, I don't even get to do that. What would you do, Jonathan, with $100,000?
Spend it on video games.
Yeah.
I would buy a toilet.
Toilet?
Yeah. I'd get a hot tub. A bunny.
A bunny? And would it be a fancy gold toilet?
Yeah, basically. $100,000 could, like, that could save you for a couple of years.
Oh, it sure could. And would it be remote controlled? Because I saw one of those once.
Yeah, I would have that.
Yeah, you pushed a button. I swear, you pushed a button and the seat went up and then the seat went down.
Ooh, that looks good.
Yeah.
More books, because I love reading books.
Do you really love reading books?
Yeah.
Does it make you happy?
Yes.
Do you like reading books more than watching TV?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the future? Okay, I'll accept that. Happy Gillers. Happy Gillers. Happy Gillers.
Happy Gillers.
Happy Gillers.
Happy Gillers.
Happy Gillers.
Happy Gillers.
Okay. Happy Gillers.
Happy Gillers.
All right, thank you. Happy Gillers.
You said it 6 times.
I know, I like it.
Happy Gillers.
You're watching the Giller Prize on CBC.
I want to thank all of the young experts who appeared in that video and also the good people at Indigo who turned a blind eye to their no-spilling rule. Patrick deWitt hails originally from Vancouver Island, and his work has taken him everywhere. His 2011 novel, The Sisters Brothers, made the Giller shortlist and has since become a major motion picture. He's back on the shortlist with his current book, French Exit. It's about an adult man who leaves everything behind and runs away with his mother. Jason Kenney said he loved the premise but wished there was more romance. The Giller jury said French Exit is a literary masterpiece. Please welcome Patrick deWitt.
It's impossible to pinpoint my aim in writing French Exit because I didn't have any one aim in particular. Life is random, obscene, lovely, and terrible, and so should our fiction be. One constant in my work is a curiosity about and affection for human behaviors. French Exit began with the creation of the voice of its protagonist, a stranger, Frances Price. By the end of the book, she was no less strange to me, but no longer a stranger.
Writing fiction it's almost like professional voyeurism. I do study people in a way that I didn't before I wrote, certainly. Frances Price is a woman in her middle 60s who in her youth had been known as a great wit and beauty, and now she's sort of doing a lot of looking back. The universe of the book is more about what happens after the glamour is past. She spends most of her time with her adult son, Malcolm, and it's them against the world. The setting takes place partly in Manhattan, the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and the rest of the book, the bulk of it, takes place in Paris, France. There's a line about Malcolm at the end, which is that he feels invisible there, which is the way I've always felt when I'm in Paris, France. You're walking along and you're surrounded by people, but nobody's stopping to talk to you, and people are too busy with their own world to consider your own. I just think of the influence that fiction has had on my own life. It's immeasurable. You learn so much about humanity when you read. This is something that clarifies and deepens our empathy. My favorite compliment is when people say, well, you know, I don't normally read, but something of mine has somehow gotten through to them. It's the non-readers, you know, when you get one of those to come over to our side, that feels like an actual accomplishment. The universe of this book is filled with absurd characters doing absurd things, but everybody's playing along. Nobody's sort of pointing out the ridiculousness of it all. It's a specialized world filled with specialized people behaving in a very specific way. I told Don I had to run to Paris because I thought you were going to kill yourself. He was fiddling with a television remote and he told me, "Tell her hello if you get there in time."
Coming up, 2018 finalists Sheila Heti and Thea Lim, and the winner of the Scotiabank Giller Prize when we come back.
When my wife died in 1993, I went down to see my friend Mordecai. I said I wanted to set up a literary award, endorse his name, the Giller Prize.
You know, what Jack Rabinovich has done is make people read books. And I want you all to say thank you.
I think she would think that this is a wonderful thing.
And so I remember asking him if he thought he was political, and he thought, you know, it's a very strange time to be writing about this very wealthy, upper-class, white family, right? But that had a politic in itself that becomes very important and fascinating and also is extremely relevant to be talking about.
And he is fascinated by people behaving badly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you have Frances, who's this sort of larger-than-life woman. She's one of those people that, like, she says things and you think you shouldn't say that, and yet she says it and people just roll with it.
Well, and the other thing, you don't know that that's what she's thinking because Patrick's not looking at their interior monologues.
Yes.
It's all the character development is coming out through their actions and through their dialogue.
Yes, and a very bizarre, you know, focus. You know, you have this son who's like a man-child, described in some places, and you know, it's just not a pairing I'm used to reading or feel like I've ever really read before. And that's the kind of freshness that I think Patrick brings. You're looking at something you haven't seen before. You're not even sure what time frame it's happening in some ways. And he talked about, like, that was sort of the intent. It could be now or it could be, you know, 50 years ago. Like, they're just so eccentric in some ways.
And the absurdity. I mean, and raising absurdity to this high art form. I think it's really wonderful.
Yeah.
So French Exit. We've got that's book number 3. I just one of the things I wanted to talk though about French Exit is just I love the combination of the sort of melancholy, but also how super funny it was.
Yes.
I mean,
fast. I mean, it was interesting that you talked about the number of people who are like, you convert to the other side of being readers.
Yeah.
Because you can see that it's a very entertaining, fast-paced read. So if it's somebody that's not used to, you know, reading a lot, they can move really quickly and really enjoy it.
Bringing the non-readers over to the other side, as you said.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great. We said we'd talk a little bit more about the jury. And again, Maxine Bailey, Vice President of Advancement for the Toronto Film Festival, soon to be leaving that role, though. John Freeman, who's an American author and literary critic, Philip Hencher, British novelist, and Heather O'Neill, the Canadian novelist and short story writer, and Kamal Al-Solili, who has written 2 books of nonfiction, and he is the chair of the jury. And we should talk a little bit about what they had to go through to arrive at these 5 choices.
Yeah, I just found out this process from Lynn Cody, who had won the award and was also a jury member at one time. And it's fascinating. I mean, they get crates of books starting in the spring. Sometimes the crates have 30 books in them. Sometimes they have 10. And they sort of discuss those books one sort of crate at a time. And once they finish that, another crate arrives and they read. So they read 104 books over the course of this summer. And once they had read those 104, they narrowed it down to a long list. And then they narrowed down to a short list. And my favorite fact that I learned is that today, at a hotel room in Toronto, they picked the winner.
Maxine Bailey said that it was a very civil conversation.
Oh, good. You found that out.
She said that she said it on Twitter, so you know it must be true, right? But
of course. If it happened on Twitter, it's always true.
Absolutely. That's huge work, and I think the jury deserves to be congratulated. I don't know how you read 104 books.
I couldn't.
Even if it's crate by crate.
Don't ask me. Someone thinking of asking me, don't ever ask me.
Please don't ask me either. It's not the kind of gig I want as far as books are concerned.
I mean, I feel like in some ways, what a prize for them to finish today and to be able to say, I've read 104.
They must feel.
I've picked the book we like the most.
Amazing. We go back now to Rick Mercer at the gala.
D.
Welcome back to the Scotiabank Giller Prize. Thank you. We are coming to you live from downtown Toronto. Could have been Calgary, but they voted against it. The book business is always evolving. Some people love reading books on a device. Others insist on the classic paper format. And books on tape, which were once the obscure domain of long-haul truckers, are now back, and they're bigger than ever. Except now, they're called audiobooks. I don't want to alarm any parents out there, but when your kid is in the house and they have the earbuds in, there's a very good chance they're not listening to Drake, they're listening to a great actor read them a book. And why? Podcasts. We now know podcasts are nothing but a gateway to audiobooks. It can happen to anyone. Some friend sends you a link, tells you to click, says it's absolutely free. You follow the link. Next thing you know, you're listening to a podcast featuring some weirdo talk about media rights. Before you know it, you are subscribing to Rosie Barton's podcast of the extended at-issue panel. And how does it end? The way it always does. You're buck naked in the bathtub listening to Paul Gross read a Canadian bestseller. That's audiobooks. Our next novel is actually available as an audiobook. That novel is Motherhood by Sheila Heti. The Guardian says her book is a defining literary work. The Giller jury said it is a complex and defiant exploration of contemporary womanhood, making it one of Paul Gross's most challenging assignments. Please welcome Sheila Heti.
I wrote this book at a time in my life when whether or not to become a mother was pretty much all I was thinking about. But I was ashamed to be spending so much time thinking about it. Then it slowly dawned on me that there is nothing more worthy of thought than whether or not to make someone live. And the only reason I hadn't known it was important was because I hadn't seen the dilemma represented as literature. After realizing that, I was able to write this book.
I have so many memories of writing when I was a little kid and just like pretending to be sick and staying home and coming up with stories and writing. It's always been something that I've loved to do. The book is told from the point of view of a woman in her late 30s who's deliberating whether or not to have children. More than the decision about whether or not to have a child, I think it's about accepting that you don't want a child and being able to reconceive the story of your life. There's got to be a better reason for bringing a human into the world that doesn't need more humans than just reflex. One of the problems in the book, beyond the question of whether to be a mother or not, is how the narrator is going to resolve her mother's sadness, because her mother is the child of Holocaust survivors. And so there's this like great pain in the family passed down through the generations. It's very close to myself. There are narrative differences between the characters' experiences and my own, and yet I think the problem is I could have neglected to think about it. I was nervous about calling it Motherhood because obviously it's about not being a mother. Just like really frank, illustrative titles without a lot of ornament. Motherhood can sound too feminine or niche. I wanted motherhood to sound like War and Peace. I wanted it to sound huge and all-encompassing. I'm guileless before them, before all ceremony or any ritual where humans make something symbolic together. I can't believe we have faith in anything at all.
Congratulations, Sheila. I was very excited to read this next book because among the topics it explores is time travel, which has always fascinated me since the release of the seminal work, Hot Tub Time Machine. I was not disappointed. Thea Lim's book is a type of book that could happen today and 12 years from now at the same time. And if that's not enough, and if that's not intriguing enough, the book takes on issues like social class, immigration, corporate power, and poverty. Oh, it's also a love story. The Toronto Star called her prose elegant and haunting, a devastating debut. Here is Thea Lim.
Everything ends. This is what makes us human, mortal, yet we love anyway, because that's what makes us human too. I wanted to untangle this contradiction, and I was surprised when this untangling became a time travel novel, and even more surprised when that became a migration story. But eventually, this made sense, because when someone leaves a homeland, they lose not just place, but time. At its heart, An Ocean of Minutes is a love story. Then again, so is any migration tale.
I think as long as we love stories, whether that means in the form of books or in television or in video games, I still continue to feel a sense of connection with my fellow people as long as we care about stories. I think a degree to which real life is very science fiction, and I think that's sort of what I was trying to get at in this novel. The last time that something happens, we never realize it's the last time. Change comes about very abruptly and sort of tears apart the timeline of our lives, and I was really interested in how using science fiction could help to sort of amplify that. In An Ocean of Minutes, Polly makes the decision to take a job elsewhere in order to get medical care for her lover, Frank, who is deathly ill. The difference for Polly is that the job is not just in another place, it's in another time. It's 12 years in the future, and then when she actually gets to the future, she's 5 years later than she thought she was gonna be. It's 17 years, and Frank is nowhere to be found. The book is the story of her trying to find him. Polly is an optimist. She was someone who was very determined and a bit of a tank, like just kind of determined to get to the end and to see it through. Like many writers, I had lots of other sort of day jobs and things to keep myself going. It was a while, I think, before I was able to really commit to writing because it seems like such a absurd gamble. Eventually, it was too big to fail. I mean, everybody in my life knew that I was doing this thing, and it was sort of sheer social shame, I think, that in some ways kept me going. Even though love can be devastating and it can be terrible, at the end, it's worth it, and it's what makes us who we are. Polly was not sure of anything. It had taken only months to break the unit that she and Frank made. How love could neatly and unremarkably stop. That was more impossible and terrible than traveling through all of time.
Congratulations, Thea. Let's recognize all of our 5 finalists once again. And when we come back to the Scotiabank Giller Prize, one of these authors will discover they are actually richer than they think.
Because it's nail-biting time.
It is. We're getting close.
Down to the last 2 finalists, Motherhood by Sheila Heti and An Ocean of Minutes by Thea Lim. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to talk about these 2 books at the same time. I think for me, Motherhood is really unique structurally, has a very different form. In the novel, the unnamed narrator is debating whether to become a mother and is asking questions by throwing these coins out there and asking yes or no questions, and the coins sort of tell her yes or no. So structurally, it reads very differently. I actually listened to it as an audiobook and had to open up the paper book to see how it looked, because something about it, I needed to process how it looked on the
really
page.
Interesting.
So I thought that was really interesting. But then you have Ocean of Minutes, which is like a sci-fi love story. And for me, that one took turns I didn't expect it to go in. You know, it's this, Frank has this flu pandemic and Polly goes into the future and they're supposed to meet up. And of course, that's not quite what happens.
in Motherhood. Motherhood falls into the category of autofiction.
Yeah.
And this is the second year in a row a work of autofiction has been nominated. Last year it was Rachel Cusk and Transit. And Sheila Heti once said that she said it feels so tiresome to make up a fake person and put them through the paces of a fake story. So how fictional is Motherhood? I don't know if we'll ever really know.
I mean, I think people who know Sheila talk a lot about the similarities between the two characters. Sheila herself talks about it, and the character is different, but also travels a similar journey for her. I thought that was really interesting.
And Thea Lim, as she said, she had no intention to write anything sort of sci-fi-ish, but it happened.
It happened, and hers also has this sort of connection to her own story, right? She is sort of a reverse immigrant. She was born here and then went back to her father's place of birth in Singapore and then back to Canada and sort of went back and forth. And so she talks a lot about her own feelings of being displaced and not really knowing home. And I thought that was a really interesting element to A Notion of Minutes, where the character arrives in the future and has to sort of wrestle with what it means to be new and to be, an immigrant and to have to find work and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and it's a time machine that makes a mistake. And that throws everything into some kind of crazy kilter.
Yeah.
And it's a terrific dynamic read.
Yeah, it's also the love story part too, where, can you survive that time distance?
Right.
What changes in between those 12 years, which also ties into Sheila's book, which is about how time changes the way you may have perceived your life and what direction it might have been going in.
I think the title, A Notion of Minutes, is absolutely ravishing as well. So you know what's going to happen? We're coming up to it. We're going to find out. And whoever wins the Giller Prize, I think we can say it's life-changing. Remember last year when Michael Redhill posted his bank account the day before the Giller and then put $100,000? Yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
it's going to make a difference. There's the Giller effect. And, obviously it means a lot to Canadian readers as well. So just to recap who the nominees are, we have Songs for the Cold of Heart by Eric Dupont. We have Washington Black by Esi Edugyan. We have French Exit by Patrick deWitt. We have Motherhood by Sheila Heti. And by Thea Lim, we have An Ocean of Minutes. And the impact of what is just about to be announced is going to be very, very big. It is the Giller effect, the Giller bump. Who is going to win $100,000 for their book? We're just about to find.
Welcome back. The spirit of the Giller Prize founder, Jack Rabinovich, lives on through the leadership and the passion of his daughter, Ilona. Giller nominee events have always been held in multiple Canadian cities for many years now, but through Ilona's efforts, all of our nominees and their books have been feted, profiled, and promoted at events in New York and London, increasing the international profile of both the prize and the nominees. And now to present the 2018 Giller Prize, please welcome to the stage, representing our title sponsor tonight, the Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Scotiabank, John Doig, and representing the Giller Prize, Ilona Rabinovich.
What a night. Congratulations, Ilona.
Thank you, John. And before we announce the winner, in the immortal words of my father, for the price of a dinner in this town, you can buy all the books. So, eat at home and buy all the books.
And the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize goes to
Esi Edugyan for Washington Black.
I wasn't expecting to win, so I didn't prepare a speech. I'd like to thank the jury. I'd like to thank the Scotiabank for so generously funding this prize. Thank you to my husband, Stephen Price, a wonderful writer, and and to our children, Cleo and Maddox, who I hope are being allowed to watch tonight. And thank you so much to my editors, Patrick Crean, Hannah Westland, Rebecca Gray, and Diana Miller in New York. And to my wonderful agent, Ellen Levine. And thank you. And thank you to everybody at HarperCollins and Serpent's Tail and Alfred A. Knopf in New York. Thank you to John Sweet, a terrific copy editor, to Peter Strauss, to I feel I'm going to forget somebody. Thank you to Iris Tupholm. And I just have to say that in a climate in which so many forms of truth-telling are under siege, this feels like a really wonderful and important celebration of words. So thank you so much.
That's it for the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize. Tonight you've met 5 tremendous authors and 5 tremendous books. I can't help but think as we head into the holiday season, you will find something for everyone on this year's Giller shortlist. Special thanks to Johnny Fay from the Tragically Hip, everyone watching at Giller Light Bashes across the country, and for supporting Canadian literacy. Thank you and happy Gillers.